Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Rubber's Lover, a Japanese cyberpunk horror movie from 1996. Now, I've reviewed this movie in my Asian horror playlist, and I also mentioned it in my movie collection playlist as well. It's time to give it a full-length review here. So this was directed by Shozin Fukui, who also directed 964 Pinocchio. Now, I really did not like that movie much at all, but if you also dislike that movie, do not let that scare you off from Rubber's Lover, because this is a far superior film, in my opinion. So a secret group of scientists conduct psychic experiments on human guinea pigs that they take from the streets, and using brain-altering drugs, sensory deprivation, and computer interfaces, they subject their patients to gruesome scientific tortures that often end in brutal death. After continued failure and pressure from the company to cancel the project, they pursue one last experiment, using one of their own as a test subject, yielding dangerous results. So the cinematography in this movie is black and white, which has proven to be an advantage in many cases in terms of establishing a proper environment for Japanese cyberpunk films that rely heavily on horrific, treacherous technology. Tetsuo the Iron Man is an obvious example of this. Now, the film quality in Rubber's Lover is very grainy as well, which is consistent with the low-budget production values and low-tech imagery on display. Rubber's Lover has this mad scientist vibe to it, with lots of old-looking, archaic equipment. They use old-school magnetic tapes to record their data in research, similar to cassette tapes or cinema reels. And most of the movie takes place in this large industrial factory of some kind that's made from concrete and steel. Lots of white smoke as well, which is apparently generated from the equipment. So you get all of that cyberpunk, type stuff in this. And I was impressed with how the film looks, especially given what must have been a minuscule budget. Music is also a big plus in this. Lots of creepy synthesizer tunes, some percussion mixed in, very intense and ambient. There are some scenes that are like longer set pieces, and the music really, they ramp up the music and it pounds you with like ambient noise and stuff. It's definitely consistent. It parallels with the kind of psychic ability vibes that this film has within the story, and it definitely has a very strong impact on you when you're watching it. Now, in terms of content, this is a demented movie, which is evident early on when one of the lady research assistants dresses up in a maid costume and licks the face of a kidnapped man who is badly injured. So it does get pretty disturbing at times. There are one or two scenes of women getting roughed up and being forcibly undressed. They don't show the whole act, but I think we can assume what happened there. But the death scenes in this movie can get pretty brutal and unusual in terms of how the victims are dispatched. One near the end is surprisingly nasty, and it's become one of my favorite death scenes in any Japanese horror film. So you gotta be prepared for a violent film here. But this is also experimental at times, because we get a lot of weird imagery, a lot of stuff that makes Japanese cyberpunk horror so unique. And there are a lot of really cool scenes in this. Like, it's a cool movie as well. So, for example, there's one fantastically creepy scene that's almost like an awakening sequence from one of the test subjects. And they're in a rubber suit, hence the title of the film. Very intense. There are times when Rubber's Lover almost feels like a borderline exploitation film, but the quality of filmmaking is high enough that it's genuinely interesting to watch from start to finish. So it's engaging for the entire 90-minute runtime, and it contributes more than just splatter and shock value. I think it safely avoids the designation of exploitation. There is an artistry to this. Now, the script writing, it's nothing exceptional, but it is interesting. The scientists are under pressure to get results. They're also psychologically unstable, basically nutcases, most of them. You could tell that the budget that was given to them in terms of operating like these experiments was not legitimate. They're probably using stolen or underground money from a mysterious organization. And there's some discussion on how the equipment works as well, which is nice. Now, the characters do behave erratically and sometimes hysterically and scream a lot, but that feels justified given the themes of psychic power, isolation, violence, and insanity in this. So, I mean, Rubber's Lover is one of the more bizarre movies you're likely to see, but it's most definitely worth a watch if you're into like low-budget Japanese cyberpunk films that can get pretty violent, but still have an artistry to compensate. I think this is very cool. But it's currently available streaming on YouTube, so feel free to check it out. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.